CBS News 4, live at 10.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Bill Webster is facing 2 years in jail.
The marathon sentencing hearing is over, and the judge threw the book at the former Attorney General. Eric Thomas joins us live now from Kansas City. Eric?
Julius, marathon is right. History-making may be even more appropriate. 11 days, over 4 weeks, certainly one of the longest sentencing hearings in federal court history. According to the Justice Department, it may indeed be the longest sentencing hearing in federal court history. Now, it's history-making in another key way as well, namely putting the state's former chief law enforcement officer behind bars. Bill Webster won the battle he fought so hard, but still lost the legal war. Federal Judge Brooke Bartlett sentenced the two-term Attorney General to 24 months in prison, a term 6 months longer than the prosecution requested.
He abused the public trust that was entrusted to him as the chief law enforcement officer in the state. That doesn't make him not a good man, in my view. It makes he committed a mistake. He has to pay a penalty.
You've got a guy that, a short while ago was going to be governor or thought he was going to be governor and is now going to prison.
Webster entered guilty pleas in June to charges of conspiracy and misusing state resources by, among other things, using a state employee to babysit and using state machines to print political materials. Judge Bartlett said Webster betrayed a public trust, then compounded the problem by failing to clearly take responsibility for it in court. But he did vindicate Webster in one respect, ruling that the government failed to link him to corruption in the state's second injury fund. The judge said the government failed to prove that Webster knew of a scheme to trade inflated workman's comp settlements for campaign contributions, and that the government's key witnesses against him, St. Louis attorneys William Rusin and Morris Kessler, were not credible.
The government wasn't pursuing Bill Webster because of the misuse of state resources. They were pursuing him because of the second injury fund. They weren't successful on the second injury fund, so I would assume the government's somewhat disappointed with that.
But there could have been a bigger disappointment. The judge's decision to sentence Webster to 24 months gave the former Attorney General the option of withdrawing his plea and going to trial, something late this afternoon he decided not to do. Webster turns himself over to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons on January 20th. Now, why Webster decided not to pull his guilty plea and not go to trial, or rather go to trial, will be a matter of debate for quite a while. Certainly expense may be a factor, but the defendant himself wasn't talking today. His attorney up there on the 6th floor of this courthouse you see behind me said this portion of this sentencing hearing cost the Webster camp $40,000. The prosecution wasn't able to put a dollar amount on its portion of this sentencing hearing, but it's probable that the investigation, which took 2 years, and this hearing cost the taxpayers several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Prosecutors' response to that, though, is that you can't put a price on good government. So, gentlemen, possibly from the last time from Kansas City, back to you.
All right, Eric, good job. We'll see you back here in St. Louis tomorrow. In a related story tonight, Missouri's current Attorney General, Jay Nixon, says a civil lawsuit might be filed against his predecessor, Bill Webster.
That would be to recover state resources used in the Webster campaign. And meanwhile, there are differing opinions on the political fallout from this conviction and sentencing of a once powerful and promising Missouri Republican. Jonathan Hall is here with that story. John.
Well, guys, the big question tonight, of course, how is this going to affect Missouri Republicans in future elections? The state GOP's chairman says voters will forget all about it. Not so, says his Democratic counterpart. He thinks the Webster saga will give his party a lasting black eye that'll be felt at the polls.
As he kicked off his campaign in March of '92, he was the GOP golden boy. Republicans felt sure he'd be governor, and perhaps some whispered even president. Soon he will have a federal address, but it won't be on Pennsylvania Avenue.
I think it's sad, but I think we can recover from it. Of course, I keep thinking about George Peach, and he got no prison sentence, and I think he did a lot worse than what Webster did.
In Bridgeton tonight, members of the Northwest Township Republican Party were shaking their heads at their regular meeting. There were plenty of Webster votes in this room, you can be sure. Now they say if Webster did give the party a black eye, it has already healed.
We have a lot of bright young men and women in the Republican Party in Missouri and throughout the United States, and we have won a lot of victories since the November election.
But the damage has been done.
Bill Webster proves that what goes around comes around.
The second injury fund scandal was Mel Carnahan's trump card, and he played it again and again.
He's let the thing run amok. He's abused it. He's abused his office.
Well,
I believe that
is a lie.
That
Mel
absolutely, when he set up a scam, when you set up a...
To this day, Webster says he never used inflated and fraudulent workers' comp awards to get big campaign contributions from lawyers. But he has admitted misappropriating state funds in other ways. Do you think a lot of Republicans feel this was kind of a witch hunt?
Well, I know that a lot of the Republicans have felt that way. However, the man did plead guilty.
That's true. Tonight, Governor Carnahan is calling the Bill Webster story, quote, a sad and troubling chapter in our state's history. But Carnahan says public officials who abuse the public trust must be held accountable.